going on, everybody? Welcome to Cocktails in the War Room, episode 220. Welcome to the War Room. I'm your host, Mistress Carrie. This is the 220th time we have all gotten together here in the War Room. And you could be watching the State of the Union address tonight. You could be watching LeBron James break the all-time scoring record in the NBA. But no, you're here in the War Room with Wednesday and I appreciate that. We started getting together here in my actual war room in my house, which is where all the military memorabilia is. And it's also where the bar is. But we started doing this back on March 14th of 2020. And we are just weeks away from what is the third anniversary of Cocktails in the War Room, which doesn't even seem possible. But believe it or not, yeah, we've been doing this for almost 3 years now, which is crazy. What else? I had a Travis, Hines, Keith is here, Lisa, Kim, Philip, Dave joining us, Alexis, Steven, Ash is here, Marcy, Eric, and of course my co-host Wednesday is joining me, although right now she's on the non-camera side of the War Room. So if you're new to the War Room, maybe you just stumbled upon us here on Facebook, or maybe you listen to my radio show somewhere. If you're new to the War Room, if you've never been here with us before, first of all, you got to chime in on the comments and let us know that this is your first time. You also got to let us know where you're watching from, because the War Room family, the OGs, the ones that have been here through it all, riding out the pandemic and everything else that's happened in the last 3 years, we would like to welcome you properly. So definitely let us know if it's your first time here in the War Room. And if it is your first time in the War Room, allow me to introduce you to the biggest pain in the ass in North America. This is Wednesday. She is my co-host, the Ed McMahon to my Johnny Carson, the peanut butter to my jelly. And, well, she comes into the War Room just long enough to get cookies, and then she leaves unless people bribe her with, get down, good girl, unless people bribe her with treats in the mail. Otherwise, she'll be here for a little while and then she'll take off. Yeah, be a good girl. Wait, I just gave you one. Be nice. Oh, by the way, cheers to you guys. Happy 220th episode. If you're new to the War Room, the copper mug means Moscow Mule. Sometimes I change it up. Sometimes, well, you can tell what I'm drinking. Wednesday, your camera's all jacked up. What's going on with you? You can tell what I'm drinking based on the container. Sometimes it's a little Fernandez Sangria. Sometimes it's a little champagne if it's a special occasion. Every now and again, we have a Temple Tuesday where we don't drink on Cocktails in the War Room, and then I'll have a Shirley Temple. You just don't know what it's going to be. Cheers to you guys. LeBron, who, says Michael? Great news about Ozzy winning. He won 2 Grammys, Jessica, not 3. He won Best Rock Album, and he also won Best Heavy Metal Performance for Degradation Rules with Tony Iommi. The 2 alternative awards went to Wet Leg. The 2 other rock awards went to Brandi Carlile. So pretty huge win for Ozzy on his 13th studio album to not only win 2 Grammys, but to win the Metal Grammy with Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath, half of the band that literally invented the genre 52 or almost 53 years ago. Matter of fact, the debut Black Sabbath album just had its 53rd anniversary, right? I don't have the date in front of me, but it came out in early 1970. I thought it was the end of January, perhaps. You guys are going to have to Google that for me. Wednesday sucks at Googling, but I'm fairly certain that it was either the very end of January or like the first week of February that Black Sabbath released their debut album, which of course is why we selected Black Sabbath off of Black Sabbath as the final song that WAF played almost 3 years ago because, well, it had a lot of Satan in it. But also it was like the first song of the first heavy metal record. Let's see. Ozzy is the man, says Jessica. I feel I did a good thing. I traded my 2000 Jeep Wrangler that had no AC. It was a gas guzzler for a 2014 Ford Focus. Lived in downtown. I can fill it up in downtown Chicago for $25. Eric, that's impressive. getting gas in downtown Chicago, not easy. I went there last year for a radio convention. Love Chicago. We've talked about it a bunch of times here in the War Room because people from Chicago and people from Boston are a lot alike. Huge sports town, very working class, gritty town. Yeah, you did a good job if you're filling up your tank for $25. What, Wednesday? Here, play with this. Where's your dinosaur? Here. We were playing tug of war with the dinosaur earlier. Here. Yeah, you can't just get all the treats right off the bat. Let's see. February 13th, 1970, Trina says. So we're literally coming up on the anniversary on Monday of the birth of heavy metal, 53 years. So for Ozzy and Tony Iommi to win a metal Grammy was pretty spectacular. Also, notable things at the Grammys. Beyonce became the most winning Grammy recipient in history. She now, I believe, has 32 Grammy Awards. And also an EGOT came out of the Grammys as well. Actress her name is right on the tip of my tongue. She won the Grammy for the audiobook version of her memoir and autobiography. Viola Davis is now an EGOT, which means she has won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. And it's pretty tough to do. So congratulations to Viola Davis, who became the newest EGOT, which is pretty spectacular. Ralph says, enjoyed Anthrax and Black Label and Exodus last night. Wait, wasn't that Sunday night in Boston? I thought they were Thursday night in Maine, Friday night at Mohegan, Sunday night in Boston. Let's see. Keith said that the wife is watching the DVR'd Grammys. There was some interesting stuff that happened. I thought the 50th anniversary celebration of, back up and get down and be quiet. The 50th anniversary celebration of hip hop, I thought was really well done. That was all produced and kind of organized and arranged by Questlove and The Roots, which is why they weren't on with Jimmy Fallon all week leading up to it, because arranging, hey, stop, back up, down, arranging dozens of different artists, dozens of different songs, different tempos, key changes, to be able to get them all up on stage to celebrate 50 years of hip hop is pretty amazing. I also thought that the Sam Smith, the performance that everyone is so up in arms about, the satanic panic that's happening right now about the satanic imagery, I think is all really funny. And I'll tell you why. We don't dive too deep into politics on this show a lot, but whipping up the conservative, right-wing, evangelical portion of our society because Sam Smith wore a bunch of red and had devil horns on a top hat and some vinyl outfits and flames. They're worried about that imagery. Here's what I think is funny about it. If you listen to the song that Sam Smith actually performed, the song Unholy is about a father and a husband who goes out and cheats on his wife and cheats on his family. You can't be an evangelical, right-wing, ultra-MAGA part of the party and be up in arms about the performance of a song and not be upset when people in your party actually do what the song's about. Just my take on the whole thing. I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago, that Trump admitted on Truth Social that he had sex with Stormy Daniels. Like, he admitted it now, even though he's been denying it for years. So he's 3 for 3 cheating on wives. And that's what the song is about. And the satanic panic about this whole thing is just insane. David Draymond had the best take of it, though. He went on Twitter with pictures of the performance and said, I don't ever want to hear that heavy metal and hard rock performances are too extreme for the Grammys ever again. And he was 100% right, because they haven't let a hard rock band perform on the Grammys alone. They've let like Metallica with Lady Gaga perform. But when it comes to like really heavy artists, They haven't performed on the Grammys, especially solo, in a really long time. And partly because it was unpredictable, right? Why? Because it's so controversial? What? Why? And the other thing is, how many of us remember Suicide Solution, Ozzy in court, Judas Priest being blamed for suicides in court, Marilyn Manson being blamed for Columbine? Like, none of that even had an iota of fact or truth. We've been through all of this before, that music is going to get blamed for the downfall. I've talked about it in the show before, but I'll bring it back up. When I was in junior high, Leominster High School had what they called a suicide cluster. Now you got to remember, this is 1985, 86. And for 2 years, Leominster High School was the suicide capital of the United States. They lost 8, 10 kids from the high school had killed themselves in the course of like 2.5 years. I remember it being on 2020. I remember it being on 60 Minutes. I remember because my dad was a firefighter and a paramedic in town, and he was called to some of the sites of some of these things. A kid in my neighborhood was part of it. And I remember because the mascot of the Leominster High School is the Leominster High Blue Devils. And there were actually people saying that the high school was possessed, and there were people pushing for the Blue Devil mascot to be changed to the Blue Angel mascot, which thankfully they never did. But this has been going on for literally decades. People are not going to start worshiping Satan because Sam Smith and Petra played a song on the Grammys. Let's not go crazy, okay? Go listen to the lyrics and then tell me who's the bigger sinner, please. I can't handle it. Hines says 85, 86. Wow, that is a long time ago. But for me, the way that the schools used to be in Leominster back then, they're different now. That you went to elementary school till grade 6, and 7th and 8th was middle school at a completely separate school. And then there were 4 years of the high school. And so I was in the junior high in a completely separate building. And I have a lot of friends that were a couple years older than me that I ended up going to high school with, but that were in freshman or sophomore year of high school. And while this was all going on, and you know, you can Google Leominster and the suicide issue that Leominster High had, but the fact that they tried to change the mascot because they thought that the school was possessed by the devil, I look back at it now and I'm just like, can we all just stop it? Seriously, can we just knock it off? Hide your Dungeons and Dragons games. David, that reference, that coming out of Stranger Things, the writers of Stranger Things have actually come out and said that storyline was based on a lot of that satanic panic, and also on one of the members of the West Memphis 3. And you would think it would be too crazy to think would actually be possible, but this stuff is still going on. And as soon as I saw Sam Smith and Petra like on the Grammys, I just opened up Twitter because I just knew what was coming. And it's like, we need to, they're molding and shaping our kids. No, they're not. Sam Smith isn't raising your kids, you are. So knock it off, okay? Just, please. Wait, Jessica says, mine was is that Spotsylvania Nights? Did I say that right? Steven says, class of 84. I was 1 year old in 1982, says Elsa. Elsa, that's not very nice. Carrie, what do you think about Madonna's plastic surgery? Jonathan, I read something really interesting online, an article, whether you like Madonna or not, whether you supported the things that she did in her career. She's pushed so many boundaries, it's not even possible. I remember when the controversy was that her bra strap was showing, because Madonna has just always been that kind of artist. I like some of her songs, not all of them, but I respect her as an artist. And I also respect her as somebody that really did push the boundaries and kind of show that she was going to take control of her sexuality and that your sexual beliefs were not going to be pushed on her. The article that I read said that Madonna was such a vanguard for feminism that a lot of people felt like Madonna had the opportunity to age gracefully and to show that chasing youth with plastic surgery and fillers and Botox and all of that kind of stuff wasn't necessary because she's Madonna and she could age gracefully. Now, I will say that no woman is allowed to age gracefully ever. The other thing is Madonna's always been someone that really charted her own course and did what she wanted. And as someone that considers herself a feminist like I am, as long as she's making the decision she's making because it's what she wants, if she wants to do that to her body, like my opinion about her appearance is part of what she's been pushing against her entire career. So it's really not for me to judge what she's deciding to do. She is immensely wealthy, has access to the best doctors. And if she wants to get surgery and do whatever she wants to her body, like, who am I to judge? It's her body. There's a lot of people talking about right now, just to kind of skim the surface of politics, there's a lot of people talking right now about kids and about gender affirming surgeries, let's say, right? And my argument is not for or against, but the same people making those arguments about gender affirming surgeries feel that it is perfectly acceptable for teenage girls in high school to get breast implants. They're not saying anything about that. Before they've fully matured hormonally, before their bodies have finished developing, thousands and thousands of American girls get rhinoplasty. They are getting liposuction. They're getting breast implants. And there's no one that has come out that is fighting against gender affirming surgery that has said anything about plastic surgery for girls that are growing up more and more exposed to pressures on social media to be thin and beautiful and to have the perfect Kardashian body. And no one is saying anything about that. So the pressure is there for young girls to be mature looking and perfect at a younger and younger age all the time. And that for older women, they're not allowed to age naturally or in a way that men are. George Clooney, like all of these guys are pushing 60, 70 years old, gray hair, like still look great, handsome, distinguished. As soon as a woman in Hollywood hits like 35, it's like the countdown is on. It's, I don't know. It's like on one hand, I could say that I would like to think that for me, I would hope that I'm going to be able to age gracefully. This coming from a woman who obviously dyes her hair, right? But I also would like to think that if I felt like I needed to have some kind of surgery to make myself feel better about what I see in the mirror. And this goes for guys too, because even though it's not as rampant, there are guys that get liposuction. There are guys that have breast augmentation to like shrink down the size of their chest, that have had, hair pressures. There's a lot of pressure with guys that are too short in society. So they have their own aesthetic pressures too. But on one hand, I feel bad even having an opinion about Madonna, but I also will tell you that I was a little taken aback by the changes in her appearance when I saw her. She's getting ready to go out on this massive tour, stadiums. She's going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. Her music will stand the test of time. She's already been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, multiple Grammy winner. Michael says, yeah, because Steven Tyler is such a handsome man. I'm sorry, but Steven Tyler looks good. There were pictures of him on the South Shore a couple weeks ago. He was meeting with first responders after everything happened in Duxbury. He went to go and visit with paramedics, firefighters, police officers, because the first responders on the South Shore were having such a hard time with the story of the Duxbury mom and her 3 kids. Steven Tyler actually looked really good. Now, Steven Tyler has always had distinctive features. Even when he was young, he had the Steven Tyler look. But he's in his 70s. He looks pretty damn good for being in his 70s. And if you've seen Aerosmith on stage, he still has the sex appeal. He still has the stage persona. So that's what I'm saying. Like, Mick Jagger's in his 80s. You show me an 80-year-old female rock star with groupies. Go back and listen to the Ann Wilson and Nancy Wilson episodes of the podcast and hearing them talk about the pressures for them, even back in the 70s, to be taken seriously. And especially Ann Wilson in the 80s, her weight was such a huge topic of conversation. And we're talking about Ann fucking Wilson, who has one of the greatest rock and roll voices in all of rock and roll history. And the story was whether or not she was fat. By the way, a huge discussion about Ann Wilson with my guest this week on the podcast. Joe fucking Perry says, Barbara, John Bon Jovi still looks good. There's a guy that's aging, right? Who allowed his hair to go gray, that didn't try to dye it all. Which if you're a guy and you want to do it, like, look, no judgment about the hair dyeing here. I'm going to have purple hair when I'm 80. I had it before I started getting gray hair. It's just going to be. It just is what it is. If you don't like it, deal with it. Mick is 79. Cassandra Peterson. Okay, Keith, go back and listen to the Cassandra Peterson episode of the podcast when I had her on, because I told her this, like, she has no business still being as hot as she is. Now, I don't know if she's had work done. My assumption would be at her age to look that good, she has. But she has gone the route of like Susan Lucci and a lot of soap opera actresses that do very small changes where it's like they just stop aging, but they don't have like the big trout pout, like inflated lips and the giant filler cheekbones and like the super arched up scared eyebrows because their forehead's been taken in. Like, there's definitely someone that looks with that plastic surgery face. And then there are people that just look younger than they actually are. For me, I would just want to look younger than I actually was. The idea of like the big giant, like Kylie Jenner inflata lips and stuff, not really my bag. Jessica says she is smoking hot. Cassandra Peterson has literally no business being as hot as she is at the age that she is. And she's never not been hot. She was, and I'm not talking Elvira, I'm talking Cassandra Peterson, natural beauty, gorgeous. Elvira, hot on a different level. But Cassandra Peterson is just so hot. And I even got her to tell me in the episode that they're real. It's not fair. Like, it's just not fair. Now, Dolly Parton is someone that has embraced the over-the-top look. That's been her look. So unlike Madonna, where Madonna always changed her hair, she always changed her aesthetic with every album, her fashion sense, the makeup she wore, she was always like on the cutting edge of like fashion, which is why I think this look for her is so jarring for people. But Dolly has been doing like and fully cops to it. That's the thing I love about Dolly. She doesn't give a fuck. And she just does it. She admits it. She makes jokes about it. She talks about the fact that all of her hair is wigs, that she's had copious amounts of plastic surgery, that she's had numerous breast implants. Look at Wednesday pocket up over here. And that's what I love about Dolly. And that's what makes Dolly someone that is such a feminist icon, because she's like, I'm doing it because it makes me happy. Me happy, meaning her. And she's like, P.S. bonus, my husband likes it. So why do you have an opinion on it? And that's why I just love Dolly. Eric, she's classy, but also prides herself on being trashy classy. Like that is her vibe. The rhinestones, the less is more, the big nails, the giant hair. Like your opinion of her matters not at all to her. And I feel like Madonna's the same way. I think Cher is the same way. Although Cher, again, someone that has had surgery over the years, Cher just looks frozen in time. Like she looks perpetually young, where I think Madonna, facial recognition, her features are different proportions now. Tracy says, she says it takes a lot of money to look this cheap. That is one of the best Dolly quotes there is. One of the other quotes I love the most from Dolly, and I use it all the time, is, and I'm going to screw it up because I don't have it in front of me to read it, but there's a quote that Dolly says about that she hopes she could look past her hair to see the brain and look past her boobs to see the heart or something like that, which, I don't know, kind of fits me perfect. So I love Dolly. Ash says, I'm sorry I cannot concentrate on you while Wednesday is creeping in the back. I know. She's like, I know you shut the pug cam off, Mom, so I'm just going to sit back here. And the only way anyone's going to see me is if I blink and you can see the glimmer off my giant bulbous pug eyeballs. Tina Turner, Keith, another perfect example. Now, Tina Turner has stepped back. She wasn't even at her own Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, but Tina Turner's in her 80s and she is aging, obviously, as you would expect a woman in her 80s to age. But talk about sex appeal far beyond the cultural norm. Tina Turner, sexy well into her 70s before she decided to kind of take a step back and just kind of live the private life, which I think for a lot of people, it's hard for them to imagine being a celebrity that could make millions and millions of dollars to this day. If Tina Turner decided to go out, she would sell out every arena and probably every stadium she decided to sell out. But she kind of made the decision like enough is enough. Like she's been on tour since before she was old enough to vote. But you're right. Another woman that sexy long past social norms. Wednesday is too stinking cute and those pug eyes are too stinking cute too, says Jessica. She looks good at the age of 70. Wait, Jessica, who are you talking to? Are you talking about Tina Turner? Because I think she's almost 80. Tina Turner was famous before the Stones. Like Tina Turner was famous in the late 50s, early 60s, wasn't she? Let's see. She does yoga and she's a vegan. She also had a very hard life too, which again is kind of amazing that she was able to navigate all of the things that she has been through in her life, come out the other side, leave the business on her terms, and decide for her when enough was enough. And I think to go back to what we were talking about, for too many women in the entertainment business, it's decided for them when enough is enough, when they have gotten to the age where people feel like their opinion is no longer valid, even though that never happens with guys. Sammy Hagar is the Dolly Parton of dudes. He's only 2 years younger than her. Thank you, producer Mike. Yeah, and you know what? Sammy Hagar, in my opinion, it's the tequila. Sammy Hagar, and this is something that's come up on the podcast as well, really is kind of figured out. I talked to McGee about this a couple of weeks ago, like the secret to life, right? The fountain of youth is managing stress, find what makes you happy, surround yourself with people that make you happy, that share your passions, and put your energy into things that you want. And if that description doesn't describe Sammy Hagar, I don't know what does. Sammy decides when he wants to work, who he wants to collaborate with, what projects he wants to get behind, who he goes into business with. we could all learn a thing or two, right? So to go back to the original question about Madonna, if that's what she's doing, all hail the Lady M. Like, who are any of us to, he's pickled, Lou says. Stevie Nicks is a singing goddess. There you go. I mean, growing up, I wanted to be two women. I've talked about this before. Sandy at the end of Grease, smoking the cigarette. Who could have foreseen this? And Stevie Nicks. They were like the two women growing up that I just thought were the epitome of like sexiness for whatever I thought the definition of sexy was growing up as a kid. But just beauty and like what I aspired to want to be like when I grew up. Got none of the acting, got none of the singing, but I did watch the trailer today. Is it Paramount Plus that's coming out with the Pink Ladies? It's a prequel to the original Grease. It's the 4 years of high school before Grease. And it's a whole limited series. It's a musical limited series, I believe, about the origins of the Pink Ladies, which is kind of cool. I think that's going to be on Paramount Plus. Stevie Nicks is 74, says Trina. Yeah. Heart playing Stairway to Heaven in front of Led Zeppelin. Talk about pressure. Sean, I asked both Ann and Nancy Wilson about that very performance in the 2 episodes of the podcast, the 2 individual interviews that I did. Both of their perspectives are pretty interesting. So if you haven't heard those episodes, you got to go back and watch them or go back and listen to them. So the Grammys, other than that, is all kind of pretty standard fare. You know, there's the people that think Harry Styles robbed Beyonce of the Grammy. Chris Brown went on some kind of bitch fit about the Grammy that he missed out on to an artist that he didn't recognize and then had to go back and apologize after. I really hate it when the only time that it was justified is Metallica and the heavy metal Grammy losing to Jethro Tull for an album that had come out years before that's not even heavy metal. But I hate it when artists pitch a fit that they don't win an award, or like what Kanye did to Taylor Swift, like discounting her art, saying someone else's art is better. It's like, you got nominated. Do you win? No. Did you win? Yes. Like whatever. But for somebody like Chris Brown, who I think he's a shitbag anyway, but to like bitch that someone else didn't deserve a Grammy. I'm like Machine Gun Kelly didn't win the best rock album Grammy and handled it pretty well. Cause it's like, what are you going to do? Bitch that Ozzy beat you in the best rock album category? Like you can't complain about that. It's just not, it's not possible for you to do that with a straight face. Like, come on. But he didn't. He handled it well. Let's see. Susanna Hoffs, Shannon, another fantastic example of a hot woman that is definitely older that, again, is someone that, is aging like gracefully or at least doing everything she can to do so. So, Grammys I thought were okay. I do wish there was more rock representation. I mean, in the most recent past, we've had like the Red Hot Chili Peppers collaborating with Post Malone, but it's like I would like there to be some more rock representation. But I mean, really, either way, if you go back and listen to which episode was it? Is it last week's episode where we were talking about Gene Simmons and the concept of rock is dead? Which episode was it? Well, I'll be able to tell you. Hold on, because we'll recap last week's episode. It was Scott Ian from Anthrax. And that was one of the things that I thought was really interesting that he talked about was Gene Simmons' intent in making the statement that rock is dead. Not so much that there's going to be no more rock music, but Scott Ian spent like the last 10 minutes of the episode kind of trying to clarify what Gene Simmons meant by that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So if you haven't heard episode 139 of the Mistress Carrie podcast, Scott Ian was my guest last week. I do want to go over a couple things before we get to the announcement about who this week's podcast guest is, including I want to remind you guys about the big gig. It's coming up fast. It's happening April 29th at the DCU Center. Breaking Benjamin, Falling in Reverse, The Pretty Reckless, Dorothy, and Beartooth. I am going to have a booth at the DCU Center, so you'll be able to come up and say hi. So we're going to have a booth at the big gig. Mike Shue and I are going to be there to host the event. And also just trying to get you guys to pencil this in. We're holding the date right now. More details are coming. We're working out everything right now. Hold the date for a special war room on a Saturday night on deployment from May 6th. Details coming soon on that. Now, something that we forgot to do last week, did you catch during the end credits of the show last week? We never did a cocktail recipe last week. And after the episode was over, I looked down and saw the book and I was like, son of a bitch. If you're new to the War Room, we always go through some of the cocktail books that I have here in the War Room to help you utilize some of the booze bottles that you might have left over from the holidays, maybe boozes that you don't know what to do with. So I'm trying to find the drink that I had. From last week that I wanted to tell you guys about. Where the hell is it? Can you guys hear her? She's right here and she's snoring. Hold on. See her? She's snoring. I can hear her. I don't know if you guys can hear her, but yeah. All right, where is it? Let me catch up on the comments while I'm trying to figure out this drink. Where in the DCU is the booth going to be? I don't know yet. We're figuring all of that out. Legit, it's still too far away, but I had a booth last year. It's very possible it could be in the same place, which was down one of the concourses, but I don't know yet. So let's see. Sweet Dreams Wednesday, says Elsa. Hey, Carrie and War Room family, just chiming in. Life's been a real bitch. Yes, Mr. Fitz. Unfortunately, a lot of people I know are having a hard time right now. And I feel like I keep saying that a lot of people I know are having a hard time. And it's because it's true. Like, it feels like someone that's trying to get out of a riptide. It's like every time I turn around, someone else I know is just getting hit with a tidal wave that was just completely unexpected. And we've all been kind of living that way the last few years. And I hate to say it, but like, this is kind of what my parents always told me would happen as you get older, is that there's just constantly things to cope with, whether it's medical related for yourself or someone you love, financial stuff, problems with the house, work issues. For anybody that's just having a hard time right now, there's a lot of people that are struggling for a lot of different reasons right now. And all we can do is remind each other that we're here for each other, and also to remember that nothing is forever, right? The good never lasts, the bad never lasts. And so to try the best you can to focus on the things that you can control and put your efforts into the things, to go back to what we're talking about with guys like Sammy Hagar, like to put your efforts into the things that make you happy, into your passions, and to focus your energy on the people that mean the most to you, and to do everything that you can to not focus on the people that make you feel bad. I've noticed it a lot since COVID, that there are a lot of people, and I think this is true for anybody, regardless of what side of the political spectrum that you're on. there used to be a time where even social media wasn't that politicized, where you could just know you were going to go on social media and see like people's dogs and their kids and funny memes and you know, people were getting together and organizing parties. And now more and more, we're being let into people's thoughts on things. People that you would see at parties and have no idea felt certain ways about certain issues. And I think with anything, we're finding out more and more about the people we know that are racist, that are sexist, that are anti-Semitic. We're finding out people that are super judgmental and closed-minded. And I think we've also, as a society, realized that that polarity in society, that we're losing the gray in the middle and we're losing the ability to change people's minds. And I have gotten into traps where I have debated with people, political debates on social media. And what I've found works for me is when I get to the point where it just gets to the point where the person that I know has said something that just goes against everything that I believe in this world. I have just started letting those people just go out of my life because it's just not worth it. The energy to maintain relationships with people that make you unhappy is wasted energy, and none of us are getting out of this alive. So I have really been trying to just focus on the people that I know are good people and let the people that I'm slowly learning aren't good people, let them go. And if that makes you a bad person, like what I have noticed though is that as I've put less energy into some of those friendships, I've noticed that there's no energy coming from the other way to maintain the friendship. So then I know I made the right decision, if that makes any sense. Let's see. We're losing the ability to love each other, Barbara. We are, but an amendment to that, Barbara, I will say it's okay if someone shows you that they're unlovable to not love them. These are things I learned a long time ago with my own family that, like you guys know, I'm not the most religious person in the world. For me, I don't have to love someone if they're a horrible person. I just don't. I don't have to try to convince them to be a better person. I don't have to beg them to change. And I also don't have to accept the fact that they're bad. I just don't. And I understand how there are a lot of people that have been brought up with very specific spiritual ideas of trying to save people's soul, trying to right their wrongs, trying to get them to make amends. I've just learned that I wake up every day trying to be the best person that I can be and to do as much good as I can. And I'm doing that without the promise of heaven or the threat of hell or whatever religion or religious dogma that there is, regardless of the religion, right? That there is some punishment or some reward. I just do it because that allows me to go to bed and sleep at night. And that can be selfish. It can be whatever. That's how I choose to live my life. However you guys choose to live your lives is great. All the power to you. But as we've talked about here in the War Room, going out of your way to try and be good for people and to help people and to be there when someone else needs love, support, whatever, I think that is all we can ask. And I feel like those are tenets that all of the world's major religions were kind of built on. I just feel like sometimes that message gets lost by the messenger. And so I just really try to focus on that. Stephanie says, tell me about it. After 16 years of being together, we separated and are possibly getting divorced. Stephanie, divorce sucks. It's painful. It's awful. It's a death in a lot of ways. I can tell you that it won't kill you and you will get through it. And it is possible to really look at yourself and to learn lessons about yourself through the process, and also learn lessons. You know, this is one thing that I had to learn. I sound like I'm spitting out things from counseling sessions, but I believe it's a Maya Angelou quote that when someone shows you who they are, believe them. And so, you know, it's a learning opportunity about the person that you were in the relationship with and how you choose to split, whether it be amicably or not. And you can learn a lot about yourself through that. You're going to learn a lot about the people in your life through that. That's one thing that I learned through my divorce is people that you considered family don't consider you family. Friends that you thought you considered a friend don't consider you a friend. It's definitely a learning process for sure, but I can tell you that there is life after it. There is love after it. There is happiness after it. And I've gotten to the point where I'm so happy with where I've gotten in my life that if I had to go through all that bullshit to get where I am, I'm okay with that now, which if you had talked to me while I was knee deep in a divorce, I would have been like, there's no way I could have ever felt like that. So Stephanie, I send you all my love. I know how difficult it can be. 16 years is a really long time. I just hope that you get through it and come out the other side of it happier than you could ever imagined you could be. All right. So I can't find the drink that I wanted to do last week, but this is the drink I wanted to do this week because it is the day of the State of the Union. This drink is called the Presidente. It's 2 ounces of white rum. Let's see, a half an ounce of Cointreau, 3/4 of an ounce of dry vermouth, a half an ounce of sweet vermouth, a dash of grenadine, and a dash of lime juice. And you shake all the ingredients and strain them into a cocktail glass and serve. It looks kind of like a Cosmopolitan, but it's white rum and Cointreau instead. I am not a gin person, as you guys are very well aware, so martinis are not my jam. This I could probably do. The white rum, the Captain Morgan-y, like spicy rum, bad experience as a teenager, but the white rum, I think I could do the Presidente. It doesn't say to garnish it with anything, but obviously if you're going to put lime juice and grenadine, it's screaming for lime wedges and cherries in there. Yeah, so obviously citrus in there, maybe a chocolate-covered strawberry, just because it's the color of a beautiful Valentine's Day drink, maybe with Valentine's Day coming next week. So I don't know. But that's the drink of the week is the Presidente, because as it is said in the Constitution that they must do the State of the Union, it's tonight. And you guys obviously are not watching it because you're hanging out with me. So, let's see. Kimberly said, my boyfriend has been there for me big time. He came over to comfort me when I needed him. That is fantastic. Stephanie says, we're going to stay mutual for the kids. Being a single parent for the last year and a half finally made me realize that I am better off. I am going to school to be a firefighter. So Stephanie, there you go. You're going to learn a lot about yourself, and that's not a bad thing. And also the person that got married all those years ago is not the same person you are now, and people are allowed to change. Most of the time for the better. If a person changes for the worse, that's not okay. But if you're maturing and growing and really secure, I think a lot of women that get married young, to circle back to what we were talking about, that there's a lot of pressure on them to be a certain way, look a certain way, act a certain way. And then as women get older and they become more confident in the person that they are, they don't want to act the way that they were told they needed to act. They want to act the way that makes them happy. And sometimes marriages can't handle that. Sometimes the same happens in the reverse with the husband, that the wife expects the husband to stay the person they were when they got married. And now 20 years later or whatever, my parents got divorced when my sister and I were adults. And in that instance, it was that they spent their entire marriage focusing on being parents and not focusing on being spouses. And there was nothing left of their marriage that they recognized. So That and my dad was spending time with a whore. And I hope she's watching. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about this week's podcast. Recapping Scott Ian. He's fantastic. Absolutely love talking to Scott Ian. He is such a brilliant guitar mind. Talking to him about his guitar playing upbringing, his musical influences, talking about what he loves about music. It's impossible to have that conversation with Scott Ian and not be so inspired, because he is just someone that is doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing in this world, someone that found their path in life early, that sacrificed everything to get there. And to this day, 40 years later with Anthrax, is still loving what he's doing. Kind of spectacular. I loved having him on the show. Scott Ian is an absolute legend. He's just badass. Heinz says, sometimes you're better off. Let's see. Drink sounds delicious, says Jessica. Hold on. I got to catch up with the... we grow, change, and become different people, said Louise. Mic drop, says Brianna. Yeah, she knows who she is. Let's see. Jessica says, you do know where the mixing bowl is, because I worked for CSX for 35 years until he retired. Okay, Jessica, I think I missed a reference there. Let's sing. Oscar Mike, wearing your beanie. Yeah, Travis. He sent me a message when he got the beanie and the baseball hat that the double extra large baseball hat fits above average size heads, Travis. But also that the beanies, both the black one and the purple one with the pom-pom, are super warm. And I don't know where you're watching from, but if you were in the Northeast over the last week, 35 below zero wind chills, yeah, those beanies got put to the test and held up. They're really freaking warm, which is amazing. So Donna says, we're always here for someone if you need to vent, which has been the whole purpose of the War Room from the beginning. Jonathan says, above average sized heads. Yes, there are people that ask me to have double extra large hats because they have above average sized heads. I'm getting a knit hat soon, Carrie, says Mark. Yeah, they're nice and warm, super, super warm. So there you go. All right, let's talk about this week's podcast episode, because it's someone that I have literally known for half my life now. One of my earliest friends in music. And I was so excited when he was like, yep, we're absolutely doing it. So believe it or not, this is episode 220 of The War Room. Episode 140 of the Mistress Carrie podcast comes out tomorrow. And my guest is Clint Lowry from Sevendust. And I just could not love him more. And Clint Lowry and the guys from Sevendust have been there, done that, done it all, seen it all. Clint and the guys from Sevendust in the early days of their career were some of the hardest touring, heaviest playing, hardest partying guys in the game. And I should know, because I tried to keep up with them on many an occasion. Sometimes was successful, sometimes failed miserably. Clint has been very vocal about his ups and downs in his career, his battle with addiction, leaving the band for a while, returning to the band. He's been sober for now, I believe it's 9 years. I didn't ask him in the episode how many years it's been now, but very open about talking about his struggles. And he and I spent a lot of time on this episode talking about making it through the craziness to that peaceful place that we've been talking about earlier tonight. Talking about maintaining a brotherhood relationship after 25 years with the guys in Sevendust, because they've been through it all. They've been through the fights. They've been through the jealousy. They've been through guys leaving the band and coming back. They've been through near bankruptcy. They've been through changing management, record labels, booking agents. they have been through it all. If you talk to a lot of bands that are relevant in rock and roll right now that have come up in the last 25 to 30 years, every single one of them would tell you Sevendust should be a bigger band than they are. There are bands that look at Sevendust as being the kingmaker of bands that toured with Sevendust as opening acts early on have now taken Sevendust out as openers later. That if you were a band that could open up for Sevendust, you basically wrote your band's success story, because if you could handle the touring pace and tempo, the crazy crowds, and the backstage shenanigans, you could handle anything. And that's a lot of the stuff that we touched on in this episode. We also spent a lot of time talking about life after touring, because that's going to happen with the guys from Sevendust eventually, that they're just not going to be able to do it forever. And what does life look like after that? Being a dad and someone that has been away for a really significant part of their child's developmental lives, and to be painfully aware of that. And I think this is an awakening that a lot of bands had over COVID, because they couldn't tour for a really long time and got to spend a lot of quality time at home and realized how much they'd actually missed. And a lot of bands are reprioritizing their personal lives to make sure that they're focusing enough energy on that, because they realize how sacred that is and how fragile it is. And I think Clint is one of those guys. He has a new EP coming out that's called Ghostwriter, that's coming out next Friday, February 17th. And Clint and I talked about his songwriting process and some of the song ideas that he has for solo stuff, and how some of those ended up becoming Sevendust songs. And we talked about a lot of that stuff. We did reminisce about some of the early times in our careers kind of coming up together. Like I said, Clint and I have known each other for about 25 years now. And I couldn't love him more. He's got a beautiful family, beautiful kids. His wife is amazing, super supportive. Matter of fact, his wife is in one of the videos from his last EP. And I just was so happy, the same way that I was when Morgan from Sevendust came on the show. When these guys that have been friends of mine for so long, to go back and think about the early days of our careers, when we had no idea what we were doing, how long it was going to last, what we were doing wrong, what mistakes we were making at the time. We really did grow up together, the way that your high school friends, the way that you bond, the way that you and the kids in the neighborhood growing up bond, the way that the people you were living in dorms with in college bond, the people that you went to basic training or boot camp with, how those people are kind of forged in that situation where you're just all suffering through it together. These are the kind of people that in the early days of our career, we kind of went through that together. And so super excited about Clint being on the episode. So episode 140 of the Mistress Carrie podcast comes out at midnight tonight. I want to remind you guys that the podcast is now available. Full audio episodes of the podcast are now available on YouTube. So not only can you find the Mistress Carrie podcast, it's also available on Audible, which I discovered recently, which I need to put up on the screen. So the podcast is basically available anywhere you want to listen to podcasts, but the audio is now available on YouTube. So if you've got YouTube, if YouTube makes it through the firewall of work and you want to just play a YouTube video of my audio while you're at your desk working, all of that can be done on YouTube. The whole archive of the podcast isn't up on YouTube yet, but more and more of it is ending up on YouTube all the time. So if you're looking for a way to listen to the podcast, YouTube is your most recent outlet. And not only do you get the full-length weekly episodes, but you also get the sit rep, which you get Monday through Friday. It's around 5 minutes long. Sometimes it's a little under, sometimes it's a little over, but it gets you caught up on everything that's going on in music, entertainment, technology, and it boils it down and gives you a chance to catch up on it while you're having your coffee in the morning, while you're bringing the kids to the bus stop, while you're commuting, while you're on the treadmill. I mean, look, you can time your shower in the morning to the sit rep. Sometimes you get a little longer shower. Sometimes you get a little shorter shower, but it's going to give you all of the headlines for the day and then get you out to go and tackle whatever craziness you've got. All right. So we got a lot to talk about with music, and we're already running late because we were talking about serious stuff. These are two of the biggest music stories of the week that I want to make sure we talk about. First of all, Disturbed announced their tour, and it's the Reclaiming Your Life tour, and Disturbed is going out with Ginger, the band from Ukraine. They're going to be at the Xfinity Center on August 18th. The tickets go on sale this Friday. I do know that more bands are going to get announced on this lineup, but they are not announcing them yet. So you can get all the details on the concert page. Go to the concert calendar at mistresscarrie.com. And also coming up on Friday, the guys from Linkin Park, after Chester Bennington died, only played one show, and it was to commemorate the loss of Chester Bennington. And basically, they said, just like Zeppelin without Bonham, we're not going to continue without Chester. And nobody could really blame them to not want to continue on without Chester Bennington. Linkin Park is so much a combination in the sum of its parts, but Chester was such a huge part of that. However, the band is getting ready to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Meteora in March, and they are releasing a lost track from the Meteora sessions. It's called Lost, and it's coming out this Friday. So we're getting a new Linkin Park song that's 20 years old on Friday. I heard a snippet of it. It took me back in my chair because it's a Chester Bennington vocal track that we haven't heard before. And sounds really good. I've only heard 20 seconds of it, but it sounds really good. Hey, Carrie, your podcast is on Facebook. Wait, is Facebook bringing back podcasting? Elsa, what are you talking about that my podcast is on Facebook? I post the episodes every week on my Facebook page, but are you telling me that Facebook is bringing back their podcasting feature? Because they did have it for a while, and then they got rid of it, that it would automatically propagate on your Facebook page your podcast episodes when they come out. So can you do me a favor and clarify that? Jonathan wants to know how the Smart Skill is coming along. I'm waiting on an update. They've been working on it for a while. I'm waiting on an update. Fingers crossed it's coming soon. Jessica says, I love Disturbed. Let's see. What's up, Jen? She says, hello, everyone. I'm watching it on Facebook. Oh, no. So, Chris, Cocktails in the War Room is not the Mistress Carrie podcast. Cocktails in the War Room is the video show. The Mistress Carrie podcast is an audio interview show with new episodes coming out every Wednesday. And the podcast episodes are now, the audio of them is now available on YouTube. But the podcast is available like all over the place, but it's available as an audio podcast. Cocktails in the War Room is a video show that streams live on Facebook and then gets posted up on my YouTube channel after the fact. So if you miss the actual live stream of Cocktails in the War Room, you can recap the episodes either here on Facebook later or on YouTube as well. But I'm talking about the podcast. So wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Google, Odyssey, iHeart, Stitcher, just look for this artwork, and the Mistress Carrie podcast is something completely different. Some people call Cocktails in the War Room a podcast, but it's kind of not a podcast. It's a streaming show, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I'm so sad about Linkin Park and Chester Bennington. He had the most beautiful singing voice, and so did Chris Cornell. I know. It's heartbreaking. And that's why hearing a previously unreleased Linkin Park song, I'm really excited about the song. So that's coming up this Friday is the new Linkin Park song. It's called Lost, and we're going to get it on Friday. Also want to remind you guys about Boston Calling. Super excited that the Foo Fighters are coming back to Boston. Boston Calling, the 3-day music festival over Memorial Day weekend. The Foos headlining night number 1 along with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, the Lumineers, and Alanis Morissette. Headlining the second night, Paramore and Queens of the Stone Age headlining the third night. Again, another show that you can get the details on the concert calendar at mistresscarrie.com. This show's coming up tomorrow night, February 8th at Roadrunner, Alter Bridge with Mammoth WVH and Red. Can't wait to see the show. And I'm hoping that Wolfgang Van Halen is going to debut a new song from the upcoming sophomore album of Mammoth WVH, but we'll find out. Also want to remind you, Theory of a Dead Man, Skillet, and Saint Asonia are going to be at Roadrunner coming up on February 25th. Theory of a Dead Man, one of many bands that is getting ready to release a new album. Their new album, Dinosaur, is going to be out on St. Patrick's Day, the same day that the new U2 record is coming out. There's a lot of new music coming. Bush and Candlebox are going to be at the MGM Music Hall at Fenway next Tuesday night. I'm putting you guys on notice. There's a chance that I'm going to have to move the War Room next week because I might be at this show. I'm working out like interviews and stuff right now. So there's a chance I will post on Facebook if that's going to happen. And if we got to bump the War Room, it's either going to be Monday or Wednesday next week, but I haven't figured it out yet. So stay tuned. Or we might just cancel next week altogether, but I don't want to do that. So I'll let you guys know what I decide. It's all going to be a scheduling thing. The new Godsmack album coming up fast and furious, February 24th, Lighting Up the Sky. Queensryche is going to be at the Palladium coming up on April 7th. Those tickets are on sale now. The Foreigner Farewell Tour with Loverboy is August 5th at the Xfinity Center. This is going to be Foreigner's last tour. Aaron Lewis is going to be at Foxwoods on April 22nd. Speaking of St. Patrick's Day, the Dropkick Murphys are going to be at the MGM Music Hall at Fenway on March 17th and 18th. March 19th at the House of Blues. Jerry Cantrell at the Cabot Theater on March 17th. Blink-182, the reunion tour is coming up May 21st at the Garden. The Dave Matthews Band is going to be June 17th at the Xfinity Center. Rando piece of trivia. We didn't talk about this in the episode with Clint Lowry, but the guy that almost signed Clint's first band didn't sign, which was like one of the early iterations of Sevendust, ended up not signing the band and ended up signing Dave Matthews instead, which is kind of hilarious. So just a little Sevendust Dave Matthews Band trivia. But Dave Matthews is going to be at the Xfinity Center coming up on June 17th. Anvil's at the Middle East on April Fool's Day. Avatar coming to the Paradise on May 24th. Our Lady Peace at the Paradise on February 10th. Yeah, just a few days away. That's Friday, I believe, if I'm counting on my fingers right. Soulfly at the Brighton Music Hall coming up on the 20th. And Steel Panther at the Palladium with Crowbot on March 19th as well. And also Chris Stapleton and Babyface are going to be performing at the Super Bowl, which of course is coming up on Sunday. Chris Stapleton's going to do the national anthem. Babyface is going to do America the Beautiful. Rihanna is going to be the Super Bowl halftime performer. There has been no leaks about any kind of guest or cameo appearances during the Super Bowl halftime show. So I'm very curious to see if Rihanna is going to bring someone or a group of people out to be part of the Super Bowl halftime show. She is an artist that is always collaborative, and I'm wondering if maybe she could infuse some rock into the performance. Fingers crossed. It's been done before. A lot of pop acts have brought out rock bands over the years. Want to remind you guys, the new Judas Priest, Rob Halford, announced that the new album isn't going to come out until 2024. We're going to get new Mudhoney coming up on April 7th. It's called Plastic Eternity. Static X, Fear Factory, Mushroom Head Dope, and Raven Black are going to be at Big Night Live coming up on March 21st. All of these dates for all of these shows. And I have also been expanding the concert calendar to try and incorporate more New England venues. So more venues in Maine, more venues in Connecticut. So if you guys have venues somewhere in New England, I really want the concert calendar to be fully immersive for New England. So if there are shows at venues that you do not see listed on the concert calendar, you got to let me know. Okay. Speaking of Bush and Candlebox, I want to do a little ticket giveaway tonight. I want to reward you if you made it to this point in the show tonight. If you want to go and see Bush and Candlebox at the MGM Music Hall at Fenway next Tuesday night for Valentine's Day, I am going to fulfill as many of these ticket requests as I can in the order they come to me. Go to mistresscarrie.com, click the Message the Studio button, give me your full name, your email address, and in the subject, put Bush. And send me a message that you would like to go to the show next week. I have some free tickets. I am going to be putting people on the guest list. So if you would like to go next week, go and do it right now. Click the Message the Studio button, full name, email address, put Bush in the subject line so it's easy because a lot of people message the website for a lot of different stuff. So it's easy for me to be able to differentiate. And I am going to fill these requests, as many of them as I can, starting with the first Bush request. And when the tickets are gone, they're gone. But I wanted to reward you if you stuck around the War Room long enough tonight. Some Bush and Candlebox tickets up for grabs. Maybe it could be a little last minute surprise Valentine's Day. So, little Valentine's Day surprise. Okay. Mail call tonight. Everybody at the post office says hello. The guy that I was talking to at the post office today, had him check the box, all of that stuff. And he came back and he was like, "All hail the purple," he said. So I thought that was really funny. All right. So we got the card. This says, "Hey, Carrie, another card is for you from Wednesday. In my family, we do crazy things, or at least some people think they're crazy. I saw this and I just knew Wednesday would love to give it to you. Happy Valentine's Day, Denise." Now, Denise, I absolutely love the card, especially because it's almost Valentine's Day. What I loved even more is what's on the back. And if you can read it, the card, the crayon hearts, is original artwork created by Casey, a 6-year-old patient at Boston Children's Hospital. This is awesome. So thank you very much. So it came in this envelope that said, "Open me first." And now there is a second envelope that says, "Mommy, Wednesday, you shouldn't have." Oh my God. It says, "Happy Valentine's Day, love Wednesday." Aww. I don't know where you guys find all these pug cards, because when I go looking for pug cards, I can't find them. Probably because you guys buy them all. But how freaking cute is that? Definitely looks older than Wednesday, but look at how cute. How did they get the cereal to stick to that little fuzzy face? Kevin says, "Facebook has not halted showing your shows, MC." No. So I think you guys are getting confused again between the podcast and the War Room. There was a time where Facebook would publish the Mistress Carrie podcast episodes, that it would actually pull the podcast RSS feed and would embed automatically, without me doing it, a player for podcasts. They beta tested it. I thought it was great because it meant that if you clicked play on the player on Facebook, that it brought you right to my podcast episode. And a lot of people listen to the podcast that way. Facebook decided through beta testing that it was not something they wanted to pursue, and they no longer do that. So now when the posts for my podcast get put up on Facebook, it's because I'm doing it manually, and it's putting links for you to click through to listen to the podcast. Where we are right now, the War Room videos, this is not the podcast I'm talking about. Two totally different things. There's actually three things. There's the Mistress Carrie podcast, there's Cocktails in the War Room, and then even though it comes out on the podcast, the sit rep is a different function of the podcast, but completely different things. Chris says, "I'm watching on Facebook." That's what I mean. That's the difference. All right, let's see. That card is so stinking cute. That's adorable. That was very sweet. Wednesday has skills. No thumbs, no problem. Michelle says, I found them at Walmart. Adorable. She has people now. I understood your meeting earlier, MC. I'm good. Okay, Kevin, good. Want to make sure. I loved it when Facebook would auto-propagate my podcast on my Facebook page. I was really bummed when they got away with it, or when they did away with it, I mean, because I thought it was really good for podcast creators to get their podcast out there automatically. But Facebook, I guess, decided it wasn't making a big enough dent in the podcasting world and decided they didn't want to do it. Let's see. Lou says, I never got that. Do they do it only in certain areas? Lou, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm kind of lost here. The comments are showing up in a weird delay for some reason. So I don't know what's going on. Found that at Stop and Shop, said Denise. Really? That's awesome. I just flew for the first time in 17 years, and I got Cheez-It, says Christina. Yes. That is an old school War Room reference, by the way. Yeah. Cheez-Its are kind of omnipresent because they got away with anything with nuts because of allergies and stuff. My opinion, however, is the bags of Cheez-Its are not big enough. I need more Cheez-Its than that on a plane. Lou said the player that you were talking about. Yeah, they picked up my podcast really early on. For some reason, my podcast got chosen to kind of be in the beta test. And I loved the way that Facebook kind of auto-propagated my podcast. They never rolled it out to all podcasts because they decided for whatever reason that they just didn't want to do it anymore, which bummed me out. So Mark says, Mom had a good health checkup. Can we toast to that? Your mom or my mom? My mom is doing okay. So we can toast to that. We can toast to your mom too. Let's toast to everybody's moms. Brian says, what's up from Daytona Beach? You lucky bastard. What's up? Hello, Brian in Daytona Beach. So that was what was in the mail call this week. So thank you for the beautiful card. And I love the fact that there's cards getting made with artwork from kids at Children's Hospital. It's kind of amazing. Want to remind you guys about the online Mistress Carrie store at mistresscarrie.com and the fact that you can also get Mistress Carrie merch at Joe's Albums. And also, if you're going to go there, make sure you check out the Mistress Carrie rack at Joe's Albums as well. Speaking of toasting, if you're celebrating your birthday today, you share your birthday with Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit. You share your birthday with Sully Erna from Godsmack and David Bryan from Bon Jovi. Cheers to all of you guys. Cheers. Mark says we're cheering to my mom who had a good health checkup. Well, that's absolutely a reason to cheers. So toast to the moms. Brett says the original Wednesday Addams died last week. I know. I saw that. Oh, Jonathan wants to know, how was the Worcester Public Market? So I went and had lunch with Mike Shue at the Worcester Public Market. And I got to tell you guys, it's awesome. The Worcester Public Market, if you haven't gone, is right at Kelly Square in Worcester. It's right down the street from Polar Park and not a far walk from the DCU Center. But basically the Worcester Public Market, there's a lot of really great stuff in there. There's a lot of small businesses that are represented, and there is a lot of really interesting ethnic food represented. There's fantastic, true Mexican food, great Indian food. That's what I had. Mike Shue and I had Indian food when we were there. There's Ethiopian food. There's West African food. It's literally all of these little mini restaurants. It's kind of like a Faneuil Hall, Quincy Market kind of vibe, where there's just all of these places to eat. So like one person can go and get like pizza and another person can go and get something else. And then you collectively take your food and go sit down. There's a lot of places to get sweets in there. There's great gelato, homemade ice cream. These are all local restaurants and companies. And then the Wachusett Brewery has a brew yard in there. So you can go and get food from any of the vendors inside the Worcester Public Market and then go sit in the brew house and have Wachusett beer and eat food from all over. That part of Worcester is developing in such a spectacular way. The public market was great. They had this little marketplace that has like 150 different hot sauces and different maple syrups and different marinades. It was really cool. So if you aren't in Worcester a lot, but maybe you're planning to go to a Woo Sox game, get there early and go and get some food at the public market. It's literally right down the street. I loved it. Mike Shue and I are going to go back. And by the way, Mike Shue knows everyone there. Like literally everyone was coming up to talk to Shue, coming up to say hi to him. Yeah, the Worcester Public Market is awesome. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Let me see. One day my clan and I could visit Boston for the weekend. Betty, there's a Boston Public Market that's kind of right down the street from Quincy Market and Faneuil Hall as well. And I love that whole idea of a bunch of small businesses getting under one roof to make it a destination for like foodies. And especially if you're willing to kind of try some foods that you maybe normally wouldn't get exposed to any other way. Different cultures and nationalities, to try something, even to places you've never been before. I love to travel, and I love having grown up in a small business. Anything that I can do to support locally owned small businesses, I just think it's hugely important. Yeah, how about the huge apartment building going up across from the ballpark? That whole part of Worcester is just unrecognizable. It's just crazy. There is so much construction going on or scheduled to go on near Polar Park. I know, it's nuts. But I'm really, really happy about it because I have staggered through those neighborhoods in Worcester over the years. And the development around the park and what's happening in Worcester, I think is just great. It really is becoming a huge food destination, and I absolutely love that. Worcester, exactly, Mr. Fitz. It's not Worcester, it's Worcester. So not going to lie, is this live or is this Memorex? It's almost 10 o'clock and I've had a few. Ryan, we're still live. This is live. It'll be Memorex later, but it's still live. I go for my every 6-month cancer checkup and we'll check it out. Jen, I'm telling you, go hungry because there's great food in the Worcester Public Market. In Worcester. Yeah, exactly. You guys maybe have seen Melissa has been commenting. Melissa had a death in the family, so I want to make sure that we're paying tribute to Clarence. Melissa suffered a loss. The family has been taking amazing care of him, and so I just want to make sure that we're sending our love and support to Melissa's family because any loss is just tragic. And when it's someone as beloved as their family member, Clarence, it's really hard. So if you're celebrating your birthday today, happy birthday. And obviously, if you guys can send some love to Melissa and the rest of the family, that would be great. Want to remind you guys about the Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass. I'm going to set the date for the live stream for February. Also, Backstage Pass holders, you've got access to Alter Bridge, Mammoth WVH, and Red tickets, to Bush and Candlebox tickets, and also to Theory of a Dead Man and Skillet tickets that are up for grabs. You guys know how to do that. If you have a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass, there's a possibility there's going to be a last-minute trip this month. Haven't figured it out yet. There's a lot of things up in the air right now and a lot of things that are going to happen between now and the end of the month. So some surprise last minute trips might be happening. So you get the travel blogs as well. Go to patreon.com. Check out Mistress Carrie there, or just click the Patreon link at mistresscarrie.com. And that brings me to the reminder of all of the places you can find me on social They're all right there. All those links at mistresscarrie.com and links to all of the outlets that you can listen to the Mistress Carrie podcast are all on the website as well. Come here. Hi, sleepyhead nugget face. Did you take a nice little nap during the show? Do you want to say goodbye to everyone now? We're going to say goodnight. Say goodnight to everyone. Thank you for the Valentine's Day card. Give me a kiss. Mwah. Thank you. All right, guys, that's the show. Ran a little late tonight. I appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. I'm sure something horrible and disrespectful and embarrassing to our republic was done at the State of the Union. I'm sure I'll go and check all of that out later, but I appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight. Most likely, we will be here next Tuesday, but there is a chance that either next week's War Room is either going to get canceled or rescheduled because Bush and Candlebox are going to be in town. I'll know that in the next few days as well. All right, guys. Good night. I love you guys. 220 episodes in the books. Episode 140, the Mistress Carrie podcast, goes live at midnight tonight. I'll see you guys maybe next week. We'll figure it all out. Say goodnight, Wednesday. Wednesday. Say goodnight. Stalker. Good night, guys.